Welcome to this explainer. If you're the kind of person who loves to peel back the layers and understand exactly how our world works, well, you're definitely in the right place. Today, we're diving into something completely fascinating, the hidden machinery of microplastics. Now look, the goal here isn't just to tell you that plastic pollution exists. Obviously, you already know that. Instead, we're going to totally shift your perspective. We need to stop looking at plastic as just some static litter sitting on the sidewalk and start seeing it for what it actually is, a highly dynamic, incredibly mobile part of a living environmental system.
So let's dive right in. What if our entire definition of pollution is fundamentally flawed? I mean, for decades, we've been taught to view pollution as an object out of place, right? A bottle washed up on a beach, a plastic bag caught in a tree branch. But to really grasp the microplastic issue, we've got to throw that traditional view out the window. It is so much more than just a stationary object waiting around to be picked up.
Think of it kind of like the confetti that literally never cleans up. Imagine a massive outdoor festival. Days later, you're still spotting tiny bits of paper in the grass. Now imagine if instead of paper, those bits are plastic. And they're so unimaginably tiny that they slip right into the water, into the soil, and yep, even into the bodies of living things. They don't just sit there, they are constantly, endlessly moving.
Section 1. More than tiny trash. When plastic behaves like a particle. This is where we need a massive mental shift. See, once a piece of plastic gets small enough, we're talking under 5 millimeters, it completely stops behaving like a normal everyday object, and it starts acting like a highly mobile particle. It's crucial to remember that plastic is engineered to last. So in nature, it degrades, sure, but it doesn't disappear. Breaking apart is absolutely not the same thing as being removed. One large item just shatters into thousands of smaller ones. The total amount of plastic is the exact same, it's just changed form. Suddenly it's almost impossible to track and, unfortunately, incredibly easy to move.
Section 2. The 6 Truths of Particles. Redefining the material.
Basically, size fundamentally changes behavior. It's like stirring salt into soup, right? Once the grains are tiny enough, they just disperse, and you can't see them to scoop them out anymore. They literally become part of the mixture. Well, microplastics do the exact same thing in our ecosystems, and there are 6 core truths we need to wrap our heads around here. Real quick, 1, fragments don't vanish. 2, size changes behavior. 3, they're either made small or broken down. 4, they take on multiple forms. 5, their surfaces are active. And 6, ecosystems react to them as particles. The big takeaway here, we are not dealing with one uniform category of trash. We're dealing with a really complex, active family of particles.
And that brings us to truth number 3. Where do they even come from? Well, on one hand, we have primary microplastics. These little guys are manufactured to be tiny right from the start. Think industrial microbeads. On the flip side, we have secondary microplastics. These start out as larger items, like tires or synthetic clothing, and they just wear down over time. It's exactly like dragging a stick of chalk across a blackboard. That chalk dust wasn't a separate thing when you started, it's just the residue of repeated loss.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating is how shape plays into all of this. We've got different origins, but we also have different shapes. Fibers, films, foams, and shape absolutely matters. Just picture an airport luggage carousel. A hard-shell suitcase rolls totally differently than a soft, floppy backpack, which moves completely differently than a scarf that fell out. They're all baggage, sure, but their physical shape completely dictates how they travel on nature's conveyor belt.
But wait, it's not just the shape, it's the surface itself. Microplastics aren't just these sterile little bits of matter. As they weather and crack out in the environment, their edges start acting like a tiny, used sponge. They hold on to chemical additives from when they were first manufactured, and worse, they can actually absorb outside contaminants from the water and soil around them. So they essentially become these active, potentially toxic little landing pads.
Which leads us straight into this super important concept, ecosystem response. Here's the thing, living systems do not read labels. They have no idea what plastic is. They simply react to a particle's size, its shape, and its chemistry. Ecosystems will naturally just absorb anything that's small enough to mimic natural organic matter. It's exactly like throwing sand into a gear system. That grit doesn't have to be giant to completely wreck the machinery. It just has to be small enough to wedge itself into the spaces that the biological system relies on.
Section 3, Riding Nature's Transport System, the Hidden Networks.
So we know what these particles are, but how on earth are they traveling all the way across the globe? Well, the really fascinating and, frankly, kind of terrifying truth is that microplastics don't need a special transport system. They just exploit the hidden networks that ecosystems have already built. Let's look at the physical carriers: water, wind, and soil.
Water is the obvious one, right? Rivers and tides flushing particles miles away. But wind? Wind can lift lightweight fibers straight up into the atmosphere, blowing them across entire continents. And soil acts as a trap, but usually only a temporary one. These physical forces are in this constant loop, shifting particles in and out of storage, dynamically sweeping them across landscapes.
But hey, the transport isn't just physical, it's biological. And it usually happens in a simple three-step dance. Step 1. An animal accidentally ingests a particle, totally mistaking it for food. Step 2. That particle is either retained in the gut or it's excreted somewhere entirely new. Step 3. That animal gets eaten, handing the plastic off directly to a predator. So living organisms are unknowingly acting as biological transport vessels, literally hitchhiking these plastics straight up the food chain.
Bringing this whole transport network together, we've really got four main drivers here. Water spreads them out, wind moves them over land, soil creates these temporary holding tanks, and organisms, well, they turn the food web itself into a living highway. This just proves that mobility, not just the fact that they're hard to see, is what makes microplastics such a massive, interconnected issue. They are borrowing the very pathways of nature.
Finally, Section 4, a new pollution paradigm, systems over symptoms. You see, nature is the ultimate circulation engine. Ecosystems are literally built to recycle matter. Leaves become soil, waste becomes nutrients, it's a perfect loop. And what plastics are doing is essentially hijacking that incredibly efficient, natural recycling engine. There's just a stark difference between our old and new mental models here. The old view was that pollution was just an object out of place, something you could bend down, pick up, and throw away. But the new view? It's a persistent material circulating in the totally wrong cycle. The real problem isn't just that the pieces are tiny, it's that they are relentlessly redistributed by the ecosystem itself. Because of this massive shift in perspective, we've got to start asking entirely new questions. Instead of just banging our heads against the wall asking how do we clean it up, we need to step back. We need to ask, where are they entering the system? Where are they temporarily stored? Which organisms are actually encountering them? And what systems are aiding their circulation? By asking these systemic questions, we empower ourselves to genuinely understand the environment, instead of just obsessing over impossible cleanup efforts for invisible dust.
Which leaves us with this final, really profound question. How do we stop a material from becoming part of nature's circulation in the very first place? We have to stop treating the symptoms and start targeting the root cause, using this new systemic mental model. Think about that the very next time you see a piece of plastic just weathering out there in the sun. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this completely shifted how you see the world around you. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.